everyone, and welcome back. We are here live on twitch.tv/AWS. We are here on the expo floor at AWS reInvent in Las Vegas. This is AWS Launchpad. So we have two very exciting announcements right now. I'm joined with Alexander and Shuba, and we are planning to make two different announcements. So Alexander, do you think you could introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Hi, I'm Alex Maraz. I'm a product manager with Route 53.
Shuba?
Hi, I'm Shubha Rao. I'm a product manager in cloud in container services.
So first things first, we are really pleased to announce the general availability of AWS Cloud Map. And I'm going to let Alexander tell you a little bit more about what he's launching today.
Thank you, Abby. So, AWS Cloud Map. Today we announce and launch that fully managed service discovery service for all your cloud resources. In essence, it's a dynamic map of your cloud, and it really helps you build more resilient and reactive applications faster, and it reduces the operational complexity at the same time.
Can you tell us a little bit about the problems that Cloud Map is solving for customers? So what kind of circumstances would they want to use this in?
Yes. So today, modern applications are built with a wide variety of resources that range between microservices that can be deployed on top of Amazon ECS, Fargate, and EKS. It can go to, let's say, web services on EC2 instances, or it can be cloud databases, storage services, and so on. And it's really hard to keep track of all these resources. Quite often, applications are deployed on dynamic infrastructure, which means workloads vary, and of course, instances go up and down, scale up and down, depending on the load. At the same time, we deploy these resources in multiple stages, in multiple versions that coexist together, and keeping track of them, as in old days in configuration files, becomes really, really difficult. So AWS Cloud Map solves exactly that problem. Now you can find out the resources that your applications depend on, all the upstream services, and connect to them directly in real time.
So I think maybe the easiest way for us to show this is through your demos, right? Because it's not just about discovering other container resources, it's about discovering things like S3 buckets.
Well, absolutely. It's definitely about any kind of cloud resources that you can do. And in fact, let me start with the boring part. We have a console that shows, yes, we have a console that shows what I have right now registered in AWS Cloud Map. We have namespaces, which are just groups of services. And in the first one, cloudmapdemo.com, I have my ECS, Fargate, and EKS resources that can be discovered via API calls or via DNS queries. In the second namespace, I have my other services. These are logs that are stored in S3 buckets, and I have my AWS Lambda event processor. So let's take a look at my Fargate cluster right now. I have two services running, I have two tasks running, and in Ecs Service, and here there are two tasks. Let's say I want to scale up and go to 4 tasks. And while we're doing that, it's going to take a moment. Let's take a look at the discovery part of the story. So, first of all, DNS Discovery. You can do a quick check. You get back your IP addresses. That's a simple DNS call. As well, you can get a fancy, more advanced DNS discovery capability with the API or AWS SDK. Let's take a look at the richness of data that you get back. Compare it with just IP addresses or ports that you were having before. Now you get things like your availability zone, like you see your health information right away. You see things like cluster name, task definition, family. If you launch your ECS services in the EC2 launch type, you can get also things like your EC2 instance ID, which is super helpful for locality-based routing. So now let's take a look if we have all these things running now. Yes, we have 4 running tasks, and let's see if we can discover all 4 of them. Now we have 4 tasks automatically registered for you in Cloud Map. Absolutely no work required on your side. You get 4 tasks. But why do you need 4? What if you really want to find out things that are located in a specific availability zone, let's say US West 2A? We support query parameters. Now you can get only 2 tasks back that are located in that zone. So that enables smart traffic routing. That's a story with Pts Integration. Before you had basically simple DNS-based integration. You would find your resources via DNS. Now you have a much more powerful API-based discovery. Now let's take a look at Pts integration. Here I have my Pts cluster, and it has just one front-end service that is running, and let's quickly switch back to the console. And if I go back, here is my front-end service registered here. Let's say I want to deploy one more service on top of my AKS, and it's going to be called backend. Let's do that. So we have it created. Let's just make sure that it's up and running, and here we are, backend, and we have the load balancer with this long name. Let's take a look at the console. So here yet, it just takes a couple of seconds to propagate, but we should be able to find it via the discovery calls. Not yet. It takes a short second. While we're waiting on that, let's switch and take a look at any other resources that you can register. In that example, I'm looking at a different namespace that is called shared, and I'm looking at my logs. Let's say I want to get all my S3 buckets that I registered for logs, and look at it again. It's you get a lot of rich information. You can define your custom attributes like read-only, yes or no, pass, shard, ARN. You can define whatever you want, color of your deployment, version, stage, and all that stuff is stored in AWS Cloud Map. And of course, you can filter out based on that. In that example, let's do a quick filter and discover my read-only S3 bucket. And off we go. We've got it right here. Now let's check what's the story with my EKS deployment. Well, it's right there. I see my load balancer appearing right here. And now, more than that, I can just do a dig command and check cloudmapdemo.com and see these are the IP addresses associated with that particular load balancer. Again, you get both API and DNS-based discovery. This service is fully integrated with Amazon ECS. It supports EKS, and of course, you can register any other cloud resources that you wish.
Awesome. So I have 2 questions from Twitch. I'm going to summarize them a little bit. So number 1, is there any way for me to consume kind of the events that come out from making changes to the cloud map? So as services come up and are registered, or our resources are as registered, is there any way that I can consume events for that?
Not at the moment.
Okay, cool. Second question is, which I feel like I've lost, is can you speak to the relationship between ECS Service Discovery and to Cloud Map?
Absolutely. So ECS Service Discovery is a capability that we announced back in March 2018, and that version is the next iteration of it. So you're getting richer discovery capabilities with the API-based discovery, and at the same time, the API remains the same. It's fully backward compatible with Route 53 auto-naming APIs that were powering the ECS Service Discovery capability before. So all your services from now on, when you create new ECS services, will be available in both DNS and API discovery.
I think if you were going to wear that t-shirt, you had to have auto-naming. You had to have Route 53 support.
Yes.
Clearly Alex is on the Route 53 team.
So I've got another question here. And Cuttlefish Riot has asked, what regions is this available in right now?
So this service is available today in 14 commercial regions. That's going to be pretty much, it's pretty much global.
Excellent.
Almost everywhere.
That's
And
great news.
Just go to the console. I do believe it's available right now. Start using it, give it a try.
Awesome. So we're going to jump over to Shuba for a minute. So Shuba, you're making an announcement today also. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're launching?
Awesome. We are launching AWS App Mesh. This is a service mesh for better visibility and control into the communication between your microservices on AWS.
Can you tell us a little bit about why we built App Mesh?
Sure. So a lot of our customers are moving to using more and more microservices, and today's container orchestration frameworks do handle all the deployment and scaling and operations. But when it comes to communication between these services, there's still a lot of hardship involved in terms of using libraries or your own custom code to get better control into how these microservices communicate. And that's the problem that Service Mesh fundamentally solves. Gives you better visibility and better controls to really identify and map how different parts of your application really interact with each other.
I think it's like one of the kind of the general common problems, right? Which is that the more microservices that you have, you can break things down and you can do really cool things, but you often end up with more problems, right? Because then you add, how do they talk to each other? How do they discover each other? How do I deal with it when I now have hundreds of services instead of just my one giant monolith?
That's totally right. So microservices help you deploy faster, help you scale, build new capabilities faster, but it also comes with multiple teams managing their own parts of the application, and that means having consistency across all these teams and having unified controls or visibility into even what went wrong if something goes wrong is really hard. So Service Mesh really tries to solve all that problem about really giving you visibility into the mapping and the interactions between these services so that you can have multiple teams, though operate at their same pace, deploy their own capabilities faster, but you still do get a lot of control into how things are working with each other to make it a seamless, well-functioning system.
So taking a step back for a second, for those of us that are new to it, I know that Service Mesh is kind of a name that's been thrown around a little bit more often in the last maybe 8 to 10 months or so. Can you give us a little bit of background on what a service mesh is and how we're working with that?
Sure. Service Mesh is fundamentally a separate infrastructure layer that you can run with your applications. So it takes the logic about things like traffic shaping or visibility or even getting logs and metrics out of your applications and has it run as a separate layer so that your teams can configure new capabilities and also insert new controls or switch visibility tools as easy as with an API. So essentially the service mesh is a dedicated infrastructure layer for managing communications. And this is generally run as a sidecar proxy that is not a part of your application itself, but runs along with your application. And that you can configure to add all these new cool capabilities.
And what about automatic TLS encryption? Can you support that as well?
We definitely have it on the roadmap. We're starting
Excellent.
with the observability and traffic controls, and we do want to bring in more and more features as quickly as possible.
Can you tell us a little bit, since this is a Launchpad segment, can you tell us a little bit about how we can get started as a customer with trying this out?
Sure. So AWS App Mesh relies and uses Envoy proxy. Envoy is a CNCF project. It's actually graduating CNCF today, which is another launch announcement from the Envoy team. So you package Envoy along with your application tasks or pods. So App Mesh is designed to run with any microservice on AWS. You can use it with ECS, with EKS. You can even use it with Kubernetes on EC2 if you're managing it yourself. Once you have the Envoy deployed as a part of your application, you can use the App Mesh API to configure whatever capability you need. We are starting with giving you traffic routing controls. We have a few demos coming up soon. And you can actually export since we are all using Envoy proxy, which integrates with a lot of partner solutions, you can already use a lot of these capabilities along with your microservices, and we are also building multiple integrations with AWS services. We want to bring in CloudWatch and X-ray integrations, and that will be a part of our what you'll see coming soon.
Okay, so there's another question here from Twitch. Are there any impacts on performance when you roll this out?
So Envoy proxy is what we are using, and it's built to be a very high performance system. The overhead of Envoy is very minimal, and it's going to be the same thing as what you would have with the open source version.
Excellent.
So I have another Twitch question actually. If I'm using a service mesh, does this have any impact on things like traffic shaping, or how do I route my traffic if I'm using like a hot-cold app model?
Yes, definitely. So you have a lot more capabilities with the traffic mesh. Mesh enables you, app mesh enables you to do better canary rollouts of your application service versions. So that means you can deploy new service versions and then decide what percentage of traffic you want to send to it, so that you have all your deployment tests run and validated on it. You can do blue-green deployments. You can do very granular traffic controls, like selecting based on path, header, etc. You can also bring in circuit breaks and retries, more client-side logic on how traffic is handled when a client is trying to connect to a server service. So all these are capabilities that you can configure and use directly without having to separately implement them at each of your microservices.
Just a comment from Twitch actually, with people talking about how cool it is that you can use that to do things like circuit breakers or blue-green deployments or shape your traffic. So that's really cool. Can you speak a little bit to, is there a certain point in their infrastructure which users should think about using a service mesh? Is it good for anyone? What kind of use cases should people be looking at for where this works for them?
So we see that customers start facing these requests, start seeing these requirements for either client-side traffic controls or the deployments very quickly as they move into microservice architecture. So it's for all users. You can try out our capabilities and see how much better controls and how much simpler your life will be to build microservices on AWS with this.
Yeah, that's it.
So I know that if you're at reInvent or if you're following along with the session recordings, there are some app mesh sessions that you can join while you're here. Shubha, where can people go to see this in action?
We have a couple of sessions for today and tomorrow. There is CON 306 today at 5:30, where we have a customer order desk speaking about service mesh and their observability requirements. We also have a repeat of that session tomorrow morning, CON 306. I am also doing a deep dive on AWS App Mesh tomorrow at 1:45 in the Venetian. So we'll have a lot of content online as well, so check it out.
Alex, same question. Are there cloud map sessions where we can hang out and see what you guys have built?
Oh yes, absolutely.
So many.
Yes. Our breakout session is scheduled for Friday 10 a.m. at the Venetian, and we have a couple of chalk talks today and tomorrow in different venues. CON 403, that's unified service naming and discovery across Amazon, ECS, and EKS.
Sessions have been posting really fast this year also, so I know that from the sessions on Monday, they were up on Tuesday. So if you're not here in person at reInvent, you can catch the videos of these sessions on YouTube, hopefully within a couple of days after the session is over. So last question for me, but since you guys are both in the same Launchpad segment, can you speak a little bit to whether there's going to be a relationship between App Mesh and Cloud Map at some point, or what are the future plans for these services?
Absolutely. So App Mesh is going to be integrated with Cloud Map. When you deploy your microservices, Cloud Map enables you to discover and dynamically update all the service configuration. App Mesh will be using the endpoints that are in Cloud Map and providing additional capabilities to those services.
I know something that we didn't cover earlier is that for Cloud Map, there's two different ways to get started. There's both through the Cloud Map console itself, but then there's also by enabling service discovery from inside ECS.
Yes, that's correct. That's thanks to that deep integration between Amazon ECS, including Fargate mode, and the AWS Cloud Map. You can get started from the ECS console, but I would totally encourage you to take a look at what AWS Cloud Map offers, and take a look at our console, take a look at our APIs as well.
Awesome. Well, stay tuned. Documentation and stuff for both of these services should be wending its way out this afternoon. So stay tuned. We'll be back soon. And then thank you to Alex and Shubha for coming to launch their services with us. We'll see you back in just a couple minutes on twitch.tv/AWS.